Steam from the street grates drifted upward into the chill night air, illuminating the neon glow of the run-down auto district. Dimly lit signs flickered overhead, half of their letters missing or burned out. Most people never strayed past the normal row of garages after dark. There were rumours about the alleyway behind them, whispers of strange happenings well after midnight. I was one of the few who dared to investigate, partly driven by curiosity and partly by desperate need. My father's prized vintage muscle car had broken down and no one could fix the failing transmission. The local mechanics all scratched their heads, shrugging at the parts that seemed antiquated and impossible to replace. But then I heard about a rumour. A hidden shop, open only at night, run by someone who specialised in forging custom parts, unlike anything else in the city. It sounded too bizarre to be true, until I found it. At first glance, the alley looked like any other in the industrial district. Puddles reflecting the moonlight, old crates leaning against sagging walls. Then I noticed a faint glow emanating from the seams of a heavy steel door at the very end of the passage. A sign tacked to the brick read, "Closed." The door itself seemed etched with intricate runes and swirling symbols. The lines glittered faintly, pulsing with a hidden life of their own. The rumour had told me to knock 3 times, then 3 times again. Feeling a nervous swirl in my stomach, I took a deep breath and did exactly that. The door swung open before my knuckles even landed the 6th time. I was greeted by a smell of burnt metal and oil, faintly tinged with sulphur. Inside, the garage was bigger than it had any right to be, easily the size of a large warehouse. The walls were hung with massive metal plates, half-melted lumps of steel, and mysterious contraptions that defied explanation. Sparks leapt from an enormous anvil situated near the centre, behind which stood something massive and hunched. It took me a moment to recognise the figure as a troll-green grow skin, towering height, shaggy hair draped over shoulders broader than any human's. He wore heavy goggles and an oil-stained apron, hands the size of frying pans. "Pansy Adams!" He glanced at me with eyes that gleamed like polished stones. "You're not scared?" he asked, almost casually. His voice had a rich, gravelly timbre, as if each word had to push past centuries of hidden knowledge. I took a nervous step forward, my gaze fixed on the wave of heat radiating from the forge behind him. He wore thick gloves, standing amidst scraps of metal that glowed with molten brilliance. Sparks danced off his hammer as he set it aside, crossing his arms over his chest. I swallowed hard and shook my head. "I heard you could fix cars," I replied, my voice sounding timid even to my own ears. "A special kind of fix." He arched an eyebrow, then turned to place a half-finished piece of metal into a barrel of bubbling liquid. With a hiss, steam billowed upward. "What kind of work do you need done?" he asked, his gaze flicking to my face, then drifting to a corner of the garage. There, I saw something extraordinary. A half-assembled car. But instead of standard parts, it had wheels shaped like stylized flaming orbs and armor plating that curled like scaled hide. It looked like something out of an ancient myth, caught mid-transformation. "It's my dad's car," I explained. "Transmission's shot. No one in the regular shops can fix it. But I've heard rumors that you're not a regular mechanic." As if to underscore the point, I noticed the hammer he held had runic inscriptions along its handle. Glowing letters shimmered with each movement. "You heard right," the troll replied, studying me carefully. "You know how rumors go, though. People say all sorts of things about me." He set the hammer down on an anvil that looked older than time, reached under a wooden workbench, and pulled out a large, battered ledger. "I don't just fix parts, I forge new ones, and they're specialized. Are you sure you want that kind of help?" I hesitated. Part of me wondered if I was making a mistake. Talking to a troll blacksmith about enchanting a vintage engine was something straight out of a fairy tale. But desperation made you do strange things. "If it'll get my dad's car running again, I'm willing to try anything." It'd mean a lot to me. The troll nodded. "Bring it in." He pointed to a wide, rolling door that led out to the back alley. "Drive it in here, or push it if you have to. Let's take a look." As soon as I stepped back into the alley to retrieve the car, I felt the boundaries between everyday life and this hidden world shift. In the dim glow of street lamps, the battered muscle car sat, refusing to start. I put it in neutral and pushed with all my strength. My sneakers squeaked as I tried to maneuver the vehicle's bulk. To my surprise, the troll stepped out and, with a single hand braced against the trunk, helped guide it over the uneven pavement. Once inside, the troll inspected every inch. Knotted muscle in his forearm flexed as he lifted the hood to peer at the rusted mechanics. His eyes squinted intensely behind the goggles. "She's in rough shape," he said. "Back to history. I like that." He then took a thick chalk and started sketching symbols on the engine block. Each symbol lit up momentarily before fading. He repeated the process around the transmission, muttering under his breath in a tongue I'd never heard. I watched him for what felt like hours. Along the walls, I could now make out silhouettes of partially finished projects, engines that looked more like creatures from nightmares, metal frameworks adorned with gem-like talismans, and tires that bristled with spikes. My gaze drifted to a corner where something sat, covered by a large tarp. A wheel peeked out, odd in shape, its rim carved with detailed patterns. Curiosity took hold, and I walked over, lifting the edge of the tarp. Beneath it was a chariot like the ones I'd read about in ancient epics, except modernized. The body was shaped from gleaming steel, each piece embossed with swirling designs. The harness extended out to attach where a car's front grille would normally be, suggesting this was meant to transform a regular vehicle into something much more archaic, yet uniquely powerful. "Impressive, isn't it?" the troll called out, noticing my fascination. Not many realize how creativity in forging can blend the old ways and the new. He walked over, brushing the tarp aside completely. The entire structure of the chariot shimmered, an enchantment almost visible to the naked eye. "It's part of a set I've been working on, enchanted parts that can morph a car into a battle chariot. You never know when you might need something like that in this city," he added, with a wry grin. My pulse quickened at the thought. Urban life had its share of dangers, both mundane and supernatural. Gangs, rogue sorcerers, and creatures that lurked in the shadows made the after-dark streets treacherous. A vehicle that could shift into an armored chariot might be the difference between safety and peril. "Does it really work?" I asked, running my hand along the carved steel. He nodded curtly. "Of course, but it's tricky business. Requires more than just skilled forging. Needs a spark of magic older than I am." His face darkened as he said it, like there was a history behind those words. Over the following week, I became a regular visitor to the hidden garage. I'd watch the troll, who eventually told me his name was Ulf, forging at his anvil. Each evening he directed me to gather obscure materials from the city's lesser-known markets. Sometimes I had to navigate the labyrinth of Chinatown's hidden stalls for a rare oil that shimmered with flecks of gold. Other times I found myself in the old library's restricted archives, searching for references to arcane runes that needed to be etched into a carburetor. He guided me through every step, ensuring I didn't stray too far into forbidden knowledge. Each day, I noticed small transformations on my dad's car. A newly forged gear with etched markings, a custom manifold that hummed with an undercurrent of magic. Rivets glowed faintly at night, and the exhaust took on a low, throaty rumble. Even the interior began to shift. The seats gained an almost regal shape, plush with velvet-like fabric, where once there had been cracked vinyl. The more parts Ulf replaced, the more the car felt alive, thrumming with latent energy even when the ignition was off. One night, as Ulf was hammering away, the hammer's sparks danced across the metal in an almost choreographed pattern. He lifted the piece he was working on, a transmission housing, still molten, and carefully laid it on the engine bench. "Now it's time," he said, nodding for me to step closer. "This is where the real forging happens." He led me to a small inset circle on the garage floor, ringed with runic inscriptions identical to the ones on his hammer. "We'll place the part here," he explained. We're going to infuse it with the binding magic so your car can shift forms. It's a delicate ritual. One wrong move and the entire thing could fizzle, or worse, blow up. My breath caught in my throat. I was about to participate in something beyond my wildest imagination. We set the glowing metal in the center of the circle. Ulf beckoned me to join his side. He began chanting softly, the guttural timbre of his voice resonating with a near-physical vibrating sensation. The runes on the floor lit up, one by one, forming a spiral of light around the metal piece. He handed me a smaller hammer, also inscribed with swirling etchings. "Strike it 3 times," he instructed, "and focus on your desire to see this car reborn." I did as he said, each strike echoing far more powerfully than it should have. Sparks erupted, but instead of fizzling out, they hovered momentarily in the air before sinking into the metal. On the 3rd strike, a flash of blue light surged through the chamber, and the transmission housing glowed with a brilliance that slowly subsided into a steady gleam. Ulf exhaled heavily, beads of sweat rolling off his brow. "It's done." A sense of awe washed over me. This was no simple mechanical fix. I was helping craft something extraordinary. By the time we installed the newly enchanted transmission, the entire car had taken on an uncanny sheen. In regular light, it looked like the same vintage muscle car, only better maintained. But under the flickering neon glow of the hidden garage, faint runes danced along its contours. That night, I woke from a restless sleep to the sound of shouting in the alley behind my apartment building. Peering outside, I saw a group of men in dark suits. Their eyes glinted unnaturally in the dim streetlight, and their lips moved in hushed aggression. I couldn't make out their words, but I felt a cold wind sweep into my room. Something about those men felt predatory, and I realized they were heading toward the industrial district, toward Ulf's garage. I grabbed my jacket and ran. My footsteps echoed off the silent streets, and the city seemed to loom around me with tension. When I reached the alley, I saw Ulf standing outside, arms crossed, glaring at the intruders. On closer inspection, I recognized the faint luminescence in their eyes. Fae enforcers. They were known to collect debts, often employing brutal methods. I hid behind a rusted dumpster, watching the scene unfold. One of the Fae stepped forward. He wore an impeccable black suit despite the rough surroundings. "You've been forging again," he said in a silky tone. "My employer warned you, old troll. Selling those parts in our territory requires paying a tax." Ulf's jaws clenched. "I have no quarrel with you," he rumbled, "but I won't pay tribute to your folk for practicing my craft." A tall, slender woman with unnervingly pale eyes stepped forward next. "Ooh, but you will," she said. Her voice was dangerously quiet. "Magic must be controlled, and you're dabbling in something quite powerful. It's not just for you, is it? You're distributing these transformations. That's a violation of the old pacts." I could see Ulf's thick hands ball into fists. "I practice ancient forging arts. That's my birthright, and I don't answer to bullies." The group tensed and I slipped into the grass, pressing myself against the shadows within. I couldn't leave Ulf to face them alone. I scanned the workshop for anything that might help. My eyes landed on my dad's car, the newly enchanted masterpiece. If it could indeed morph into a battle chariot, maybe it could scare them off, or at least give us a fighting chance. Heart pounding, I jumped into the driver's seat, fumbling to push the ignition button. The moment the engine roared, an otherworldly hum joined it, as if the runes came to life all at once. Outside, I heard the confrontation escalate. Doors slammed, voices rose. I shifted the car into gear, and in a move that felt both reckless and inevitable, I pressed down on the pedal. The car lurched forward, bursting through the partially open rolling door. Light from the street lamps overhead refracted off the hood, and, as I turned the wheel to swerve between Ulf and the group, I felt the transformation begin. The front grille and sides of the car expanded, shimmering with liquid metal as runic shapes materialized. The tires spun in place, morphing into large, spoked wheels that glowed with the same faint runes. In a heartbeat, the entire body of the car adjusted, the trunk elongating outward like a platform. metal plates sliding into position. Within seconds, I was no longer sitting in an enclosed vehicle, but at the helm of a steel-lined chariot. Instead of a seat, the driver's cockpit had turned into a raised dais behind a pair of front wheels bigger and more menacing than anything on the road. The Fey enforcers stared in stunned silence for a moment, clearly not expecting this. One of them shouted something in an archaic language, flinging out his hand. A bolt of shimmering light hurtled toward us. The chariot's steel plating took the impact, sparks flying but leaving no visible dent. Ulf seized the moment of distraction. With a roar, he swung his forging hammer, the runes blazing, and sent the nearest Fey tumbling backward into a row of trash cans. I guided the chariot, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The hum of the enchanted engine roared like a furious beast. Realizing they were outmatched, the enforcers scrambled, conjuring bursts of magic. Some spells struck the ground, leaving scorch marks. Others darted toward me, but the swirling runic shield that formed around the chariot deflected them. Realizing that retreat might be their only option, the Fey glowered and exchanged a silent communication. Two of them rushed to help their fallen companion, and the group disappeared into the night, leaving only the echoes of their threats behind. A strange hush fell over the alley. My ears rang with the fading intensity of magic. Slowly, the chariot began to revert to its car form, the metal shifting seamlessly back into place. Ulf approached, eyes wide with equal parts admiration and concern. "You did it," he said. "But they'll be back." That reality sank in like cold water. The Fey enforcers didn't give up easily. My heart still hammered from the confrontation. But I also felt something else. A fierce resolve. The city was changing, and there were powers at play beyond mundane understanding. Ulf's forging wasn't just a hobby or eccentric craft. It was vital. A tool for defense in a world where supernatural threats lurked in every dimly lit corner. With the car parked back in the garage, Ulf closed the rolling door. He poured 2 mugs of a dark, bitter tea from a dented thermos, handing one to me. Then he pulled out a stool and settled heavily on it. "They don't approve of anything that disrupts their hold on power," he murmured, nodding in the direction the Fey had fled. "But I can't stop. My art is my life." He paused, regarding me with a thoughtful expression. "And now you've seen what these machines can do. You've helped forge them. You're part of this now, if you want to be." I took a sip of the tea, grateful for its warmth. "I do," I said, thinking about how proud my dad would be if he could see his car blazing with renewed energy. I came here to fix the car, but now I see there's so much more going on. I looked around at the racks of half-finished metal contraptions and the workbench still steaming from the forging. "You're giving people a chance to defend themselves, to have a fighting shot." He set his mug down and fiddled with a gear. "It's dangerous work," he said solemnly. "The chariots are powerful, but every enchantment is fueled by an ancient magic that exacts a price. If the driver doesn't wield it responsibly, the results can be disastrous. And believe me, the Fae and other powerful beings will do anything to control it. They see it as a potential weapon." I nodded. "We can be careful. We can be wise about who gets these parts." Part of me couldn't believe the words leaving my mouth. A few weeks ago, I was just another person struggling with a broken-down car, oblivious to the deeper currents of magic in the city. Ulf seemed to measure my determination. Finally, he placed a large, rough hand on my shoulder. "I appreciate your resolve. Listen, I can finish upgrading your dad's car, and then you can decide. If you want to stand beside me, you'll have a place here. But the moment you do, you'll be marked by those who want to silence us." I glanced around at the swirling shadows flickering against the walls of the enchanted garage. "I think I already crossed that line," I admitted with a small smile. "And I'm still here." In the days that followed, I helped Ulf finalize the modifications. He crafted a new set of morphic wheel hubs, forging them under a full moon, chanting incantations that ensured they'd respond at the driver's command. He also etched protective wards into the chassis, painting them in carefully blended inks that shimmered with crushed crystals. Every time we tested the transformation, it felt more natural, At first, the shift from car to chariot was jarring, but after repeated practice, it became fluid, as if the machine and I were developing an unspoken bond. Out of caution, we kept watch for any sign of the Fey enforcers returning. Sometimes, I'd glimpse silhouettes late at night near the garage's rooftops, or see a flash of unnatural eyes at a street corner, but they never confronted us directly again. It seemed they were biding their time, waiting for a moment of weakness. On the final evening, the transformation was seamless. The muscle car, now pristine in its base form, roared to life in a subdued purr. With a flick of a switch that Ulf installed near the steering column, the metal again shifted into an ornate chariot on spoked wheels. The platform remained stable even as I accelerated, moving with a grace I'd never experienced in any vehicle. After halting the transformation and returning the car to its normal state, I stepped out to find Ulf watching me with a hint of pride in his usually stoic gaze. "That's it," he said. "She's ready." I rested my hand on the car's hood, feeling the faint hum of magic vibrating beneath the metal. "Thank you," I said. "I owe you more than I could ever repay." He shrugged, turning to tidy up his tools. "Just respect the art. Show the same care in using it as I did in making it." Then he looked at me, a faint grin softening his features. "And if you ever want to learn more about forging, well, the shop's open. For you." For a moment, the gravity of what I'd been part of truly sank in. I had witnessed ancient techniques, learned incantations, and watched a troll blacksmith breathe life into a machine that could become a legendary war chariot. This was more than just a secret, it was a calling. Outside, the neon signs flickered, and beyond them, the city pulsed with countless lives, most of which had no idea this garage existed. But threats lurked out there too, just waiting for an opportunity to strike. I realized I couldn't walk away. These streets needed someone ready to stand up to the predators in the shadows. And I had a weapon few could match. Even so, I felt a pang of fear amid the excitement. I'd made enemies, powerful ones. The Fae, with their ancient grudges and labyrinthine alliances, were not likely to let this go. But I decided if they came for me or Ulf, I'd be ready. We both would. Late that night, as I was leaving, Ulf locked the door behind me. The ancient runes lining its surface glowed protectively. He tossed me a small key shaped like a gear, etched with more runes. "For you," he said simply. "If you need to get in, if I'm not around, be careful with it." I clutched the key, feeling its subtle hum. "I will." Stepping into the alley, I took a moment to appreciate the hush of the city. Distant traffic hummed along serpentine roads, and the lights of countless apartments dotted the skyline like stars. Somewhere in this urban sprawl, the Fey enforcers were likely plotting their next move, and other beings of legend might be lurking, each with their own agendas. But I felt a surge of confidence as I climbed into my father's newly restored car. The engine turned over with a roar that faded into a powerful purr. Beneath the mundane exterior, I knew it was more than a simple vehicle now. It was guardian and ally in a city teeming with hidden danger. I guided the car through empty streets, each neon reflection sliding across polished metal like a silent vow. I was no longer just an onlooker to the world's hidden magic. I was part of it now, bound by metal and enchantment, forging my own path in a city that kept its secrets close. And though I didn't know what trials lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. The chariot was mine to command. And as long as Ulf Forge glowed in that hidden garage, hope would burn bright against the shadow.